Hello and welcome to the Talk Football podcast. This is season 4, episode 17. I am joined by Mr. Paul Nelson, Spurs fan, and we are going to have a little look and break down the season that's literally just ended. Welcome to the podcast, Paul.
Thank you very much.
It's
Good
been
to
a
see
little
you
while.
again. It
Yeah, it's
has.
good. Yeah, it's been a little while. Oh, where do we start? Do we start with yours or do we start with mine?
Got to start with your lot, mate.
We're going to
It's
start with
an easy
Chelsea.
one.
I mean, listen, I don't agree with the decision for a start. I just think we were built. We were like unbeaten in 15 games. We'd built a bit of momentum. There was a pattern of play emerging. Everything was starting to click. We won the last 5 games of the season. We ended up finishing 5 points off Aston Villa so potentially if you'd looked at, say, the Sheffield United and the Burnley games where we dropped points and draws, we could have turned them into wins. We could be sitting in the Champions League place now.
No,
So
you were 3 points behind us in the end.
yeah, end of the season, we're nearly
But how
catching
did
we're nearly
that?
catching Spurs.
Yeah. I looked at the league table, like the game before the last, just before the last game of the season. I was like, how the hell did that happen? You were like miles behind us for the whole
Honestly,
season, and then
like
all of a sudden,
from the midpoint of the season, and bearing in mind we still had a ridiculous injury list. Likes of someone like Fafana, hasn't kicked a ball this season. Lavia's had like 13 minutes. This is 50. It's a 70 million and a 50 million pound players, and they've not kicked balls. And Kunku's pretty much been out near enough the whole season. We've lost Reece James from a massive part of the season. So I don't understand the decision that's been made. If you have chairman and managers that fall out all the time, but ultimately, surely you put egos aside for what's happening on the pitch. And if it's getting right and going right on the pitch, leave it alone. Yeah, all right, Pochettino might not be a yes man. He maybe wanted more control. Obviously, there's players that the ball see as pure profit that they're going to want to get rid of. And from my understanding, this is what it kind of breaks down to with his decision to go, is that there was a group, particularly the homegrown players, that he wanted to keep. And then you've got the board that are thinking, okay, if we're going to fund and navigate FFP and fund the likes of an Osherman, then we're going to need to make pure profit. And pure profit means selling homegrown. But if those
I
players are playing
wonder.
well,
Yeah, I wonder if Poch is just had enough of football politics. So you think of, like, take out the first 2 seasons at Spurs when we were great and we were flying. Then he went, all 2 years practically without being able to sign a player. Still manages to get the Champions League final, but doesn't have really the power and the control that he wants at Spurs. As we went into the last season at Tottenham, he talked about how he wasn't a manager; he was just a coach.
yeah,
Then he went to PSG, didn't he? And had a very
he
similar
did.
situation with a clashing with a sporting director, not being able to get his beliefs over. And then he's gone to to you guys, where you spent all this money on young players, which is perfect for him to build and mold a team.
Yeah,
And then I heard something the other day about he had a set piece coach forced upon him. He said he didn't need a set piece coach, and he had one forced upon him or something. I just think he feels like, I'm a big enough manager now. I'm not proving myself. I prove myself,
yeah.
and you have to completely 100% back me, where I run the whole club from a football perspective, or I'm gone.
And this seems to be what it's all boiled down to in the end. It appears from the outside, and it appears from people I've spoken to from other like Chelsea podcasts, etc., that the new ownership there's a level of meddling from non-football people that just hasn't gone down well with Pochettino. And that's understandable because if, like you say, if you have this young group of players and your remit was to qualify for Europe, your remit was to a complete overhaul of the squad, and then get it playing attractive football. Well, tick, tick. I've achieved that. Why are you lot getting involved in something? Go and sell another hotel. You know what I mean? Make sure the books are covered. Leave me to do what I'm doing over here because we're doing well. The players are with me. I've got the dressing room. It's going well. You go and do that over there. and leave me the F alone over here. And and now it's just like, we're taking a 12-month step backwards again because we don't know who's coming in. So favourites for the job appear to be De Zerbi, Maresca. My personal choice would be to have Thomas Tuchel back, but clearly way too spiky for this ownership model. So if that being said, my actual choice would, for me personally, would be Ruben Amorim. And obviously there's been a bit of quiet on that because you don't want to piss off Sporting. They've got a cup final to play, so that they're challenging for a trophy. So you don't want to go in there and start stirring that up and potentially talking about getting permission to talk to their manager when they've got that going on. Not that
That's
that seems to
exactly what
bother some
happened.
clubs.
That's what happened to Spurs last year with Pochettino. He had the cup final up in Scotland. Everyone knew that's where Spurs were going, but there was no official
That's
approach
wishful
after the
thinking,
game.
isn't it? Postecoglou.
That's what I said, didn't I?
No, it's a Pochettino. Pochettino on the brain, mate. You want him back, don't you? Admit it.
Nah, it's not
Is
going.
that is
Never.
that is that
Not
done
now.
now? Is that tainted now because he was a blue?
Well, do you know what? Because it was only a year and he didn't win anything, there was a little bit of me when he was sacked. It's like, well, maybe in the future. Whereas before, I was completely against it. But I'm not sure. Depends on where he goes. If he manages, like, maybe he won't now. United have won the cup, but if he goes up to, United or manages another English club, then for me, no. I
I
mean,
think,
I'd love him to go over to Bayern. I think if he
yeah.
does that, goes
Well, that's
and
done.
does
That
well with the
was
cap,
Bayern's done. So,
that's
company
crazy.
has got that. Do you know what? Looking at, like, from the outside perspective, looking at Bayern, company for them ticks many, many boxes. One, bilingual, so there's no issues with the dressing room. I think he speaks like 5 languages. He plays. Take the Premier League season out of the equation. What he actually did at Burnley, taking a squad that had been relegated, complete overhaul of the squad, produced exciting attacking football in a style that obviously appeals to what Bayern want to do. Is young, commercially viable, if you like. So I kind of get it from that. I don't understand it necessarily from a footballing perspective because he's got no, he has only really got that one
He's
season,
got he's got no
experience. But
credentials. He wasn't
no,
even exactly shit hot when he was over in Belgium, was he? Before that
no,
wasn't a
but
team
that
that was
kind
doing
that kind of went
brilliant.
wrong because he started off there as like a player manager,
Mm.
and then it quickly become apparent that right then and there he was a little bit out of his depth. But yeah,
I think it says of a team that so they kind of feel that they can. He's good enough to take them back to the top of Germany, but he's not gonna challenge in the Champions League, is he? Like if I was Kane, I'd be going right transfer request. I'm off. Like why am I here?
yeah,
Personally, he's not a manager that would I'd have any faith in.
yeah. And then touching back on Pochettino, I mean, if it was United for him, if they do sack Ten Hag, and it was United for me, that's like out of the frying pan into the fire because that's a mess there. That's on in terms of ownership level, that's a mess. The way they've
But the
handled
only
the Ten Hag situation is ridiculous.
the only well, the flip side to that would be it's a new group of people looking after the football side of it. You come in, you're their man, and you set the boundaries from now.
Yeah,
So you say I've got complete control, and it's a club that's used to having a manager who has complete control. So maybe not. Maybe they're. I mean, and say they're at such a low, but they've won 2 trophies in 2 years.
you
I'd
know,
love one trophy.
I mean, I know Man United brand themselves as the biggest club in the world, etc. And yeah, for a club their size, they ought to be competing towards the top end of the Premier League. But poor investment and poor footballing decisions have cost them over the years. I don't understand how it quite works. And I touched on this with Andy, how it quite works with Ineos, Jim Radcliffe and all that, because they only own 25% of the club. So 75%, surely 75% of the decisions which involve the money have to come down to the Glazers or a representative of the Glazers as well. So when they're making decisions, multi-million pound decisions about managers, players, etc., I just don't understand how that dynamic works. I mean, unless Glazers have gone, like, listen, do what you want. If you're going to fund players, this is it. You do it, but this is going to be your risk. We're not risking our capital on this, but you make the decisions and you're going to live and die by them. So it's a weird one.
It might not be that it's not their capital. It might just be that this is the amount of money that you can have, and you make you make decisions off the back of that. So if you don't need to do a mass fire sale of players, don't. If you do, then you do. We're not going to be involved in any transfer decisions. Not going to be involved in any money spent on the academy or whatever it is. But this is your set budget, and there's already an agreed budget for the next however many years. I don't know, but yeah, it does seem a bit complicated, doesn't it? Two owners looking after different parts of the business.
Yeah, I find it a very strange setup, and he's talking about knocking most of the Old Trafford down and rebuilding now. I mean, how does that work financially? Would that necessarily have an impact on how much money you could spend on players for the squad? Squad at United needs a bit of an overhaul. It needs investment, particularly in the defensive areas. From what I've seen,
a terrible team. They're an appalling team.
I mean,
they've won 2 trophies in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's successive FA Cup finals as well. And I know maybe a lot of people don't put. I mean, I'm old school, so I still put quite a lot of kudos, if you like, on being in an FA Cup final and winning an FA Cup. I know, it doesn't.
I'd be delighted to be in an FA Cup final. But I haven't been in an FA Cup final since I was 11 years old.
No, so not to be too flippant on Spurs. So the last trophy would have been League Cup
in 2008. Yeah,
it's a long time.
Chelsea.
Let's not talk about that then.
No, it's true. It's ridiculous. It's an absolute joke. Which is why there's all the pressure on.
I mean, all of us that support clubs that are competitive or have been competitive for the last 20 years, whatever. We all want to win trophies. And there are only a limited amount of trophies you can win. So realistically, at the moment, no one really is going to. I can't really see City slipping. They might have the odd 1 year in the Premier League where they slip a little bit. So realistically, you're only challenging for 2 trophies as outside clubs.
But Arsenal weren't far off, were they? They were a win at Villa, or
but
a draw into a win, and.
I personally think City have had an off season. I'm looking at the results of the likes of Arsenal, etc., and the years when Liverpool lost out by a point when it was like 98, 97 on the points, etc. I just think this was a missed opportunity for when City weren't quite at it this year. Bit of a Champions League hangover. I just think this was an opportunity for someone to step up and do it. And Arsenal, for me. Apologies, Arsenal fans, if anyone's watching over it on the TikTok, etc. I think they bottled it again. I really do. But the few of the games where they had them draws, title winning teams don't have them draws.
What games did they bottle it in? Then do you think?
I can't offhand. I can't remember
the only one I can think of is the Villa defeat. The Villa finished fourth, so there was that one of the teams that had the chance of beating them.
Yeah. And there were a couple of draws in there. Off the top of my head, I can't remember who the draws were against, but there was a couple. I think there was like a couple of 2-2 draws in there somewhere. It might have been a 3-3 and that harms you when you're trying to chase down someone like City, because City have got this pattern. So the first early part of the season, maybe up until the midpoint, they can be a bit sketchy and they're not quite at it. And then once New Year turns, it's like they go, okay, business time now, and we go in gear. So if you haven't got what you need and then can maintain that from that point on, from the turn of the year onwards, then they're such a juggernaut and they're so difficult.
I think you're. I mean, I can't believe I'm sticking up for Arsenal, but I think you're being harsh. There's 2 key points. I think
you heard that. You heard that here first. You got
the Villa game. The Villa game was a bit of a collapse. And the only other thing where I think you can question them would be when they went up to City and they got a draw, and they set out for the draw, and they were celebrating that draw like it was a victory. They went up there to get a draw, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they got one. And Gary Neville was massive on. That's where they should have been trying to take, 3 points off City as opposed to just,
I mean,
sharing the scores.
I mean, even though he's been in charge a few years now, does that still show a little bit of naivety from Arteta's side of it?
I think it just City are so intimidating that a point there feels like a good result, doesn't it? And you think, okay, we'll hope someone else can take the points off them. Whereas in reality, if you want to beat them to the league, you have to beat them to beat them to the league.
So we've had a few comments, more than a few comments over in the thing. Z, no, bro, is not scared of the chat. I am on YouTube live, so if you want to come across and ask questions there, folks, then feel more than welcome. Someone has apparently said that Jose is coming back to Chelsea. Can't see that happening. So no, I don't think that's going to happen.
He's another one who's going to want control, isn't he? He's not going
totally.
to, be told who he can sell and who he can buy.
Yeah. So, well, I've had a question for you. Where do you think Spurs will finish next season?
I think we're going to spend a few quid in the summer, and we've got some good youngsters.
Mm.
And so if they're given an opportunity and we buy the right players, and we do need to spend a few quid, we need a striker and we need a number 6. They're the two real key positions. If we can get them 2 positions, I think we'll finish top 4, but I'm more interested in really going big on the trophy. Yeah. And I'd love to see us win the Europa League.
Well, I mean, we're not in the Europa League, as as many people keep pointing out in the chat across here. Thanks to Man United for that. I'll add all my eggs in City's basket yesterday, because
the difference in the mentality between the two clubs, though, is that when you dropped down to the Europa League last time, you took it seriously and you won it, and you'll probably win the Conference League because
I mean, I think you have to. I mean, yeah, it's not where we want to be. We don't want to be in the we want to be playing Champions League football, but only 4 teams can do that. So it is what it is. We are where we are. And I think, if you're in that competition, and I spoke about this on the Two Blues podcast the other night when I was on there, and for me, I don't care what competition we're in, you go to win it. It's as simple as that, because ask a West Ham fan whether they would trade that European trophy, the Conference League that they won, for finishing, say, 5th and then qualifying for the Europa League, or would you rather have silverware, no matter what it is, in the cabinet? And I think, hand on heart, people are going to want a trophy, because as fans, for the vast majority of clubs, you very rarely get to see your team lift the trophy, no matter what it is. So I take it. At the end of the day, it's not massive revenue, but it is revenue. So you're bringing more revenue into the club by being in the European competition, and potentially with only this current set of FFP rules only going to be around for possibly another year. That's important. And there's no getting away from that in terms of the business side of football. Now you have to have revenue coming in, no matter where it comes from. For me, bring on the Tin Pot European League conference, whatever you want to call it. I'm thinking we go in it, we go for it, and we go for winning it. And to be fair, and if you look at the age of our squad, we've got the youngest squad in the Premier League. If players at the age of 21, 22, 23 can't manage playing Thursday, Sunday, then they need to have a serious look at themselves. So yeah. And
did you see the stories about the WhatsApp chat amongst the Chelsea players when Poch was sacked?
No.
Apparently, a couple of journalists saw it, and a lot of the players were really annoyed and pissed off that he's gone, and were questioning their futures and whether they should stay. And
but again, this is what I'm saying about the whole 12 months back thing. So you take, for instance, someone like Cole Palmer, given the freedom under Poch to express himself on the pitch. He's had an amazing season. There's no saying that a manager coming in next sees in Palmer what we all see, what Poch saw, and then all of a sudden you've got maybe 22, 23 very, very unhappy players. And you know what it's like at clubs, and we've seen it many, many years, especially at Chelsea, is that when they turn on a manager, it's game over. We see it under AVB. That went well. Even with Jose, when things weren't quite going right, we're there. The power group of players were like, listen, Roman, we love the guy, but this ain't working. All right, there isn't a Roman to necessarily go to, but you can be sure that some of that group, the Gallagher's, Reece James, one or two others, have definitely got the ear of members.
What do you reckon will happen to Gallagher, Reece James?
My big fear is I think they'll cash in. I think it's either going to be one big one, and I know Real Madrid have been looking at Reece James. They need a right back. Carvajal's coming towards the end of his career. Woodall bald, bearing in mind his injury situation, and albeit yes, he is club captain. But if they come and slap 70 odd million down on a table for a player that you can't get on the pitch, and Chelsea fans will fucking hate me for saying this, I would potentially, and I know this is going to sound absolute madness to probably about 90, I would probably rather lose Reece James, because we've got Malo Gusto and we've got players that can cover right back if Gusto's injured. I would probably rather lose Reece James than I would Gallagher and Chalobah.
Mainly, and also because of his fitness record, you can't guarantee he's going to be fit.
Yeah. And
if
don't get me wrong,
him abroad,
I love Reece James, and a fully fit Reece James is arguably probably the best right back around. But you can't get him on the pitch. You can't. And I know there's a lot of people saying that if a new manager comes in, we could go to three at the back, and you could play Reece as the right-sided centre back of the three, and that wouldn't put as much pressure on his body, etc. I'm not sure defensively he's good enough to play that position.
He's an
anyway.
He'd be the wing back, wouldn't he? Surely.
And this is the thing
about not putting the pressure on his body.
This is it. And I think in an attacking phase, Reece James is phenomenal. His delivery into the box is awesome. Malo Gusto hasn't quite got that end product yet, but I think he's a young player, and that definitely can come. But defensively, I think Malo Gusto is far more solid than Reece James in a defense. And ultimately, if you look at the way our season's gone, we were always creating chances, and then once the goals started to flow, so did some of the results. But defensively, we were still a shambles. We were relying on a 39-year-old fucking superstar in Thiago Silva, and you can't. And it's just Badia Shield constantly making errors. Disasi, he's good, but Disassi's not going to get you back in the top four. He's a good squad player, don't get me wrong. I think, and on his day, he can be very good defensively. The left back issue, Cucurella has been brilliant, actually, to be fair to him. In this new, and yet again, though, this could all change with a new manager, because you've got Cucurella, all of a sudden he's gone, all right, so to help out in the defensive and offensive positions, we'll get you to tuck in Pep style as that, player that steps from defensive position into the midfield position in front of the back four, which enables you as a team to transition between defense, because you've got an out ball, you can pop it into Cucurella, he can pop it into the other midfielders or forward areas, and you build from there. Pattern of play. Yeah, again, when Chilwell's then put into the mix, I'm not sure Chilwell's capable of doing that. And yet again, Chilwell's injury record suggests that you might only get 50% of him on the pitch. I don't know. And we just say new manager comes in, you just don't know how it's going to go. You don't know what they want to play, formation wise, etc. If it was someone like Amorim, generally he likes a three at the back, and sort of like wing backs, if you like, up and down.
When you said three at the back, my first thought then was, what does that mean for how Cole Palmer plays? And as you say, he's
But
had
this
this
is it.
amazing
Yeah.
season.
Do you then say, right, Carl Palmer's going to go on the right of, if if it's like a 3-4-3, you don't traditionally, if it was that, you wouldn't traditionally play with a 10. So then you're looking at either playing in false nine or on the right, which is very, very good on the right. But then where does that leave Madueke? So in theory, on the left-hand side, Mudryk should pretty much have that now down. And if Sterling does stay, but I would prefer to get rid of Sterling because I want his 325k off the books. Thank you very much. But if we do look at that, then Mudryk should have that sewn up on the left, really. And I think he started showing signs of it really coming together for him. But yet again, new manager comes in, he just doesn't, you don't see it. And then you've got an 89 million pound player that you're not utilising, or you're going into the trap of sending them out on loan again and stuff like that. The club's just a mess. And I said this the other night. When you have a club where you have non-footballing people making footballing decisions, it's going to fail. 100%, it's going to fail. And I wouldn't be surprised if we brought someone in. If I was a top manager, and I think there's a reason why Graham Potter hasn't taken another job, because he's got paid off so much money on that contract that he's under no pressure whatsoever to put himself in the firing line and take a shitty job.
Do you not think he's just waiting for the right opportunity?
No, I think he earned about something like 8 or 9 million quid. And he's probably thought, well, that's hurt my career a little bit. I don't really fancy going in at Championship level or potential relegation fodder Premier League clubs. Chances of him landing any club that's going to be, although there's been rumours and links with a few clubs like United, etc. I don't see him getting a top 6 job. So why put yourself in the firing line? Keep all the money. Maybe do a bit of punditry work. So if I'm a top manager, I'm thinking, all right, I can go there. If I'm an Amorim, if I'm a De Zerbi, if it don't work out and you get chopped within 12 months, you're walking away with a massive payday. You're not really going to take it that much of a dent on your reputation because of what you've potentially done before, Brighton, Sporting, etc. And you probably still have the opportunity to walk into a top job in Europe with your financial future well and truly sorted out. So
if Vincent Company can get a top job in Europe, then anyone can get one, can't they?
Yeah, right. So more comments in the TikTok. Now, Mr. Khan, I am talking to Paul Nelson, who is a Spurs fan. We are live over on YouTube. So click the link in the bio, get yourself across to the YouTube and join in on the YouTube chat. And then you can see who I'm talking to and you can ask us questions directly there. So this is just for you guys to know that we're live so you can come across to the YouTube. So I'm not ignoring you, but my focus is over here on the YouTube with Paul. So yeah, feel free to come across and ask questions over there. We're getting a lot of heat. I'm getting a lot of heat over it. There's a lot of people that are giving it big balls over here about the Conference League and all that. I don't mind the Conference League. It's fine. It's a European competition. We're in it. Yeah, right. So let's talk Spurs. We've smashed Chelsea to bits, and now we're going to look at Mr. Plan A, Ange Postecoglou, because I feel that that's pretty much all he's got. Now, I said this may be controversial, and let's get your reaction on this, because I'm looking at the press conferences towards the end of the season, and to me, I just had a feeling Ange Postecoglou's not going to be there at the start of the season.
Yeah, I heard you say this the other day.
Do you know what?
I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I think he'll last the season.
I hope I'm wrong, because I think he's good for the Premier League. I think he is good.
He'll be back this summer, and he'll be given a season to prove himself. But I do think there's quite a bit of pressure on next season because
he
of
needs
the way
the tools, though.
He does. He needs to demonstrate. I was wavering, and then the City game made me change my mind because he showed a bit of tactical naivety beforehand, or at least a tactical inability to innovate and change and have tactics based on the teams he was playing. But then against City, he went with this false nine concept, and we had players running from midfield. And yeah, we didn't win, but we looked better. And he basically picked a team and tactics based on the players he had available, as opposed to what he's done for the rest of the season, which is trying to shoehorn the players that he has available into the system that he wants to play. And I think if he's given the tools over the summer, which I hope he is, I hope he gets that striker and he gets that good number 6. Yeah, we can. I think we could do all right next year, and I think he'll be given the full season.
Yeah, do you know what? One of the things, and you were saying, the drop off in form of Maddison was mad. I know he had a few games out, and he just never seemed to recover on that. I mean, there was a couple of games where I saw he was playing Kulusevski in the 10.
I think Kudo is a good 10. With Maddison, apparently that was quite a common complaint from Leicester fans. They would say that a third of the season where he was amazing,
when he's on it, he's on it.
Where he was injured, and then a third of the season where he was struggling. So I think he's one of them. Yeah, when he's on it, he's on it. When he's not, he's not.
Great player. Don't get me wrong. I really like Maddison.
Yeah, when he plays well, he's a good player.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if Postecoglou needs to show he's got a bit more. He needs to show he's got a plan B and he's prepared to use it. I think he needs to give a few of our youngsters a go. We're doing unbelievable, like in the under-21s and the under-18s and Premier League B and all them leagues. So it'd be nice to see a couple of them youngsters given a chance in Europe. I think the way that the pool group is now, I think you play 8 games, you don't play home and away, you just play 7 other teams. So hopefully there's a chance there to rest some of the big guys on the away trips to these far-flung Eastern European places and give some kids a chance. And I'm quietly confident for next year. But
there were some reports over the last day or two that Emerson Royale could be shipped out, which would only leave you really Pedro Porro then on that right side.
Yeah, if we did that, we'd need to buy a right back.
Yeah.
Or another centre half that could play right back.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise. I mean, he's not an inverted attacking right back. He's a solid right back in the 4-4-2 whose job is just to defend and do nothing else. So he's not suited to the manager. So, and I think that's the other benefit we've got. If we can find buyers for all of the players we want to get rid of,
that's the hardest bit.
Should be a pretty decent transfer fund.
Yeah.
As long as we're prepared to just kind of let them go, we can still get decent money for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and that's where we struggled in the past. Our struggle has been selling players when we should sell them. And actually being prepared to sell them for their market value as opposed to always trying to get 5 or 10 million more than they're actually worth.
And that's the thing. I mean, Will Levy then put his hand in his pocket and really back him. I mean, me looking from an outside perspective, I mean, definitely need another centre half. I think Van der Ven and Romero are very, very good. But both of them have got a mistake in them, and they can both jump in and be a little bit rash. And maybe you need that sort of a calmer ball playing centre half as well, just to mix it up a little bit, and that gives you the option of playing a 3 as well.
I'd say priority number 1's a striker. Priority number 2 is a number 6. If we have a good number 6 that actually protected the 2 centre halves,
see, I thought Bazuma was going to be that for you.
Yeah, he's
gone right off it.
Yeah. Then I would say we need a reserve fullback, someone who can play predominantly a right back, but someone who can also fill in on the left if needed. Then maybe a centre half. So I'd say centre half would be full choice, but I think you'd find if we had a good number 6 that the 2 centre halves would look amazing because individually they're very good players.
I think having Udogie out for that length of time was massive because I think he was a real integral part of about the way your patterns of play form up. Yet again, he was one of these modern fullbacks that was dropping into the midfield, making up numbers. Porro the same on the other side as well, and it alternate in between the two. But for me, I thought Udogie with his pace, his power, I think defensively he's very good as well. And I think for me, he just brought a real stability to all aspects of the team. And I think that was a big miss. And obviously having the likes of Ben Davies having to come in there and cover for him and that, it just weren't. But then it's the same problem for everyone. I mean, there's a lot of teams where the squad don't run as deep as you need it to, and that's not an easy balance to achieve.
No. And that's why I think we need a fullback that can play both sides. So the guy comes in, he knows he's probably not going to be first choice either side, but because he can play both sides, he knows he's still getting 20, 25 games a season. With injuries and suspensions in Europe.
You get or if you can get a centre back that can, a bit like Nathan Ake at City and Gvardiol, that can Akanji even that can, like you say, step out and go and play, whether that's in the fullback areas, potentially playing in front of the back four defence in the defensive midfield, sort of like the way Stones has done for City, etc.
Yeah, but exactly.
Players like that are not easy to find, especially ones that are potentially might sit on the bench for a fair bit. So I think that, but then that again, maybe there's a youngster at the club that can do that and give him an opportunity.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a youngster, but as I say, the guys are doing well in their respective leagues. So
yeah,
we've got a guy who's a number 10 called Jamie Donnelly. He's a really good young player, just signed a new contract. So fingers crossed he'll get some opportunities, particularly as I suspect Lo Celso will go. So you probably see Maddison will be your first choice number 10, and then Kulu can come in from the wing and play number 10, and then Donnelly being like his two understudies. Hopefully that's what I would.
Bentancur still good enough to play in this system, and is he quick enough on the ball?
Yeah, he's class. Like, time stands still when he plays. He knows what he's doing. He had that really bad injury that he came back from. Then Matty Cash did him again. So he's just not, properly fit, not properly confident with his body.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a good player. He's a good player.
He's class. He's a top player. Yeah, really, really good.
I just wonder sometimes with particularly midfielders like the likes of him. Sometimes I feel maybe the Premier League is just a bit too quick. Given time on the ball, but they're great.
He's proved himself beforehand that he's more than good enough. He just needs a full pre-season. To get himself.
And then, like you say, getting in a forward, there's not many of them about, and that's the thing. I mean, arguably, I've seen some reports that potentially Saudi are looking at Richarlison. You would think at the age of 27 that he would command a pretty good fee, and that could then be reinvested back into a striker more with what Postecoglou wants to do and what he wants in terms of that. So in terms of the patterns of play, etc. I think a more mobile sort of striker. I can think of one. I mean, I don't know if you know him, but Boniface. I think he would suit the way you play, and it would enable Sonny to go back out on that sort of left side where I think he's probably at his best. But yeah, again, you got a problem with that and all with Sonny because he's 31 now. I don't think he's been as electric as he has been in the last few seasons, etc.
He's been fine. He just needs to play on the left. He's not a striker. He's got a couple of good years now. I mean, I don't know who the answer is up front, but I think they're there. You just have to be prepared to pay the money. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, Gyökeres at Sporting. Again, that's another good striker. Like I mentioned, Boniface, Kolo Muani at PSG. If they go out and invest money to replace Mbappe, that could potentially be a striker that doesn't want to sit on the bench all season. I think that's someone who could probably fit the Premier League very well.
Tony, Isaac, Watkins.
Yeah, well, I mean, who would you take out of Tony and Watkins? Who do you think would suit you better? Arguably, Watkins is probably more mobile than Tony, but I think Tony's probably, albeit Tony's not had a great end to the season at all. His form has dropped off.
I'd say Watkins would suit better, but in all honesty, he's not going to leave for a season in the Champions League, is he? So Watkins would probably be more the summer after, is when I would assume, because I might be wrong, but I don't see Villa getting in the Champions League next year. So Tony's probably the one.
I think it
depends apparently Newcastle have got FFP problems, so go and spend money on
there's been talks with them actually this week. Apparently, very early doors talks about Gomes to City. I believe if it gets done before a certain time, there's a clause in Gomes' contract which is set at 100 mil. So if City want to stump up that kind of money, I mean that pretty much solves their FFP issues in one hit. Yeah, Newcastle are a bit of a funny one because obviously they've got probably the richest owners in the world and they can't spend the money.
Can't spend it. Yeah.
No,
they've got no European football now, have they? So.
No European football at all. So thanks to United yet again, United winning the FA Cup, that puts Newcastle out of all European competition. So that potentially sets them back a year. And there has been talk with Eddie Howe being linked with other jobs as well. So who knows? Who knows what happens there? But it's mad. But obviously with FFP, all the clubs voted to replace it with a new format, which I believe would enable the club with the richer owners to be able to spend more money. And it would, but obviously it would benefit all clubs because, even the small clubs, you look at someone like a Bournemouth, etc. Although their revenue overall is relatively low, they've actually got wealthy owners. So they, and just because they've only got a 14,000 seater stadium, they get punished by it. FFP was initially designed to try and help out and make a more of a level playing field, but all it's done is just limit what big clubs can actually spend, and then they have to then navigate, potentially selling one or two players iffily to Saudi to balance the books, potentially a few million over the odds of what they're actually worth. And then it punishes the smaller clubs because they don't have revenue streams anywhere near that. And then they then can't then struggle. It's no surprise to me that all three teams that came up from the Championship last year have all gone back. And that's on top of two teams in the Premier League, established in the Premier League, getting points deductions. And yet those teams that came up still weren't good enough because they're all too fearful of FFP to actually think, we're going to have a go. So it's more like, well, we'll take the 120 million from the Premier League for being in here for one season, and we'll have enough because we haven't gone mad on the squad. We've only brought in, maybe top level championship players, etc. That when we go back down there, the financial hit, especially with parachute payments, etc., ain't going to be massive. We'll bank all this money, and there's a great chance that we're just like with potentially Leeds today. And there has been quite a few comments on who we think would get promoted today, Leeds and Southampton. I think it'll be Leeds. I think they're a better team than Southampton. But it's no surprise to me that Leeds and Southampton have bounced straight back because, they've kept quite a bit of their squads together because they didn't go mad on investments, etc. in the years that they went down because of FFP. And yeah, again, I think the three teams that are going to come up, I don't think they'll go mad on. So arguably, they could all be looking at going straight back down again.
Yep, it's a bit of a monopoly.
As I said, people rate the Premier League as being, one of the top and the best leagues in Europe, but it's not really. I think it's become pretty boring, to be honest. And I think it's not great games to watch. Everyone seems to have this, most of the, say, top 8 clubs or club pushing towards the top 10s, etc., all have a very, very similar way of playing, all more or less trying to copy Pep and play this possession-based, almost total football style with players that are not particularly capable of doing it.
So, yeah, but I sort of almost argue that makes it a lot more exciting than it's been in recent years because everyone is trying to play out from the back. Everyone is playing a high press. So you are getting fast-paced games and games where there's, how many goalkeeping mistakes have there been? Goalkeepers trying to play football that have led to goals.
Well,
it's,
and Narda's great at that.
Yeah, exactly. So it is. I think it is quite exciting to watch, but you're right, and predictable from a results perspective. City 4 in a row, Arsenal second in the league twice in a row. You sort of know, don't you, where everyone's going to.
I mean, obviously, Villa have been that surprise team this year, but then their form towards the end of the season was pretty drab, and they only just about clung on to top 4. I mean, you guys were hot on their heels. And you'd made up a few points in that last few weeks, etc.
Well, neither of us wanted it. It was almost like both of us just bottled it. But They were in such a strong position.
I think they'll probably struggle a little bit. But then yet again, they do have wealthy owners. They haven't spent massive amounts of money in the last couple of years. They brought in a coach that's been able to get the best out of the players that they're already there. Villa owners are very, very wealthy. They just haven't gone mad with the money. And perhaps maybe I don't think they'll go crazy in the summer. I think he'll probably look to bring in Unai Emery will look to bring in maybe 2 or 3 real like marquee signings, potentially like a very a top midfielder. Ironically, they've got their eye on Gallagher as well. Everyone wants Gallagher. This is the thing. Everyone says Gallagher's shit. He's just a headless chicken that runs around for 90 minutes and and hasn't got all this great quality on the ball. And yet everyone seems to want him.
How good do you reckon he is? Because there's talk obviously of Spurs wanting him,
Right.
and I don't think he'd get in Tottenham's midfield as a number 8. I don't think he's better than Sarr. I don't think he's better than Bentancur. If he was available for 20 mil, 25 mil, and he wanted to come to Spurs, I'd say do the deal. But the talk seems to be that Chelsea want 50 for him.
Yes.
And they'll only get 50. And
I'll tell you
50
what
is the
you
amount
get.
of money they need.
What you get with Gallagher, and do you know what? There's a lot about Gallagher that reminds me of James Milner, right? Because if you talk about James Milner's career, amazing career, ridiculous amount, something like what 600 or whatever it was appearances, won trophies, but no one ever puts James Milner up in the brackets of in terms of midfielders of your Kevin De Bruyne's and people like that because it's James Milner. But what James Milner did, and Henderson throughout his time at Liverpool as well, is the minimum you will get, the absolute minimum you will get out of them is a 7 out of 10 every week. Because
so
the
he's
effort,
consistent. He's
consistent,
like
the effort that they put in. How many times this season I've seen Gallagher make 60, 70-yard sprints to get back and close balls down, make critical interceptions in the box, in the defensive phases, etc. And that's what you get. So, and every team needs a Gallagher, a Milner. They need that consistent player that's going to give 110% for the shirt. That's going to be a 6.5 to 7 out of 10 every week. And occasionally you're going to get games where they'll be unbelievable. They'll get goals from midfield areas, etc. Or they'll make game-winning tackles and interceptions, etc. And I think that's what. And if you take Gallagher out, and I know again Chelsea fans will probably disagree with me because Enzo's a bit of a baller and on the ball he's phenomenal. But I just think as a 2 in midfield, Gallagher and Caicedo just works because both of them have got great engines. Both of them run. They do everything a 6 can do. They can do everything an 8 can do. And at times, they can do it some bits and pieces what a 10 can give you. So you're just getting this all-round sort of like complete player. And yeah, they may not have, that lock-picking potential that they could find a Kevin De Bruyne pass, an Enzo Fernandez pass. But they'll do enough across 90 minutes that you're probably going to have a great chance of winning the game because, you're going to outrun, outbattle, and just have more about you than maybe 3 or 4 other players in the opposing team. So I think that's where Gallagher brings his value, and I don't want him to go.
No,
I think
so
he's
you
a
would
leader.
say he's worth in today's market 50 mil is worth
in terms of his ability, maybe he is around that sort of 25, 30 mil bracket. But the fact that he's homegrown, he's English, and what he gives to the squad and what he gives us in terms of leadership, 100%, I'll put him up in there in the 50, 60 mil bracket. And I know he may not come to a club like Tottenham, and you may not think of him as starting first choice in the midfield. 2 or 3 games in, you will, and 2 or 3 games in, you'd be thinking, "Well, we can't live without not having this guy on the pitch." And I think that's what he brings to a team, and he brings leadership. And when you've got a young squad, and he's probably a little bit more experienced in terms of playing now because he had the season at Palace. He's had three full seasons now. No, 2.5, whatever. Full seasons playing in Chelsea first team. So in terms of, all right, he might only be 23, but in terms of actual experience on the pitch, he brings that as well. So you get a leader.
Yeah. I don't see enough of him, so I'm not knocking him as a player. The main reason why he doesn't interest me is because I don't want to help you lot out. You know, if it was a steal of the century, like if it was 20 million, I'd say do it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but that's the other thing. I mean,
50 just makes it feel like
we're saying we want this amount of money,
you.
but ultimately his contract's running down. I mean, I think he's only got like 18 months left on the contract now. So if you start now getting towards the end of that, you've got a year left. If it doesn't go, this season, and yet again, this whole thing with our board that they want, once a player gets under 2 years on the contract, it's either sign or we'll sell. And maybe Gallagher just wants to say, okay, listen, I'm committed to the club. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm 100% here. But I'm not going to sign a new contract and commit myself for another 5 years. Well, I don't know who the manager is going to be. I don't know the direction that the club's going to go in. I don't even know if I'm going to be playing. Because you bring in, say, a foreign manager and doesn't like what I do, why would you commit?
Yeah.
So
I
just don't think the answer to that is, we'll sell you then.
Yeah.
I think that's the wrong way to go about it. But yeah, I think should we sell Gallagher? Should we sell Chalobah? And Chalobah yet again, another one. And I know Spurs have had a little bit of interest in that and all. And you're talking about a player that can play, centre back, and if need be, go out and cover. Well, then Chalobah's that one. He had a bad injury, and then he struggled. He weren't really getting game minutes as well, and then he was struggling for a bit of form, and then he came in to the team, and it all coincided with Caicedo hitting form, Gallagher being brilliant for us, Malagusto being brilliant for us, and then Chalobah comes in alongside Thiago Silva, and we now see the Chalobah that we saw before the injuries. We saw the Chalobah that was, superb every week, and yet again, and we're looking to sell him. Apparently if someone comes in and pops £25 million on the table, he's gone. I mean, what are we doing? I just don't get it. Chalobah's been far more consistent over the past, say, 10 games than Disasi, Badiashile, Fofana, who we've never seen, have been together for the whole season. And you're losing a world-class centre-back in Thiago Silva. Well, why are you letting, if we let Chalobah go, we're left with Badiashile, Fofana, Colwill, and Disasi as the 4 remaining centre backs at the club. 3 of them are pretty much out injured most of the time. So you're left with 1 senior centre back. So yeah, I don't get it. I get that homegrown players are pure profit, etc. But I don't get any club, doesn't matter if it's Spurs, Chelsea, United, whoever, shouldn't be looking at cashing in on potential young players, because that's just insane, because that's free transfers. So yeah, it's pure profit, but it's also money that you don't need to spend on replacing them. If they're good enough, then they should be pay them what they want. They're not going to cost you fortunes anyway coming out of an academy. So, Trevor Chalobah's probably, he ain't going to want, 200 grand a week. Gallagher ain't going to want 200 grand a week. But if you're bringing in, a top level European or South American centre back, they're going to want 200 grand a week, if not more. And then you're going to shell out what, 40, 50, 60, 70 million on a transfer fee as well? Makes no sense. That's just ridiculous. Let's see if we've got any other questions for you in here. I haven't checked here. That must be an Arsenal fan. He's put in capital letters. What do we think of Tottenham? We know where that ends, and I ain't repeating it. But yeah, I mean, Spurs wise,
growing force of the Premier League.
well, I don't know. I don't know where. I don't honestly for the both of us in terms of I don't really know what next season looks like, and that's a worry for me.
I'm quietly confident. I think
You were confident at the start of this season, though. Well, I remember we're going back and we were looking at it, and you were really confident. You thought you got your man in Postecoglou. You know,
that might have been
I'm.
when Kay was still at the club.
But yeah. Again, though, I mean that is worth taking into consideration. The fact that you've lost arguably one of the most dangerous and prolific strikers in European football. You've lost
It's
him.
arguably, is it? It's without question.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got what 40, 46, 47 goals this season in a struggling Munich team. So yeah, fair play. Um, I'm just jealous because I would have taken him in a heartbeat.
Well, there's no striker in the world that you'd rather have than him. If you're talking about playing for a one-off season,
Yeah,
you'd want Haaland or you know
yeah,
Mbappe if you're talking
Haaland,
about for five
Haaland,
or
Kane,
six or 10
Mbappe,
years.
Osherman.
But if it's a one-off season, it's Kane because he's guaranteed going to score and he can play football too. And the other two aren't as good passing as what he is.
Yeah, be interesting to see like who you know what happens there. Because if it don't go well for Company in that first year, could Kane be looking at a romantic return to White Hart Lane?
Well, I mean, in the part I'd like to see it, but if in reality it would have to be this summer
Yeah,
because we have to spend big money on a striker, and going back to my point before, not a striker just for next season, but a top striker for the next 5 years, 6 years.
yeah,
So we need to spend a lot of money because you're going to be you're paying for potential, aren't you? You're paying for that whole period of time.
yeah,
So come another summer, it will come to the point where if we do things properly, we would have moved on from him. If we get to the point where it's next summer and it's like, oh, we want him back, like we need him back, then it means that we haven't done the correct transfer business.
Do you agree with potentially selling Richarlison, or would you like to keep him?
I'd keep him as a reserve. It just depends on how much money we need to make.
Yeah,
And the problem is that you made a point about football and business, and he's come in. He's been hit and miss. He hasn't been great. And if the Saudi club is going to give us,
40, 50 million.
almost every penny that we pay for him, then you look at it as a one-off transaction, and you go, okay, well, it's a chance to get our money back. That's a successful transaction. He's going to play for a couple of years, and we haven't lost any money on him.
Yeah.
So sell him and invest that money in a striker that will play and will score more goals because he's not a prolific striker, is he? He's a nuisance.
It's a funny one with him though because he's been pretty prolific for Brazil. He just can't. He doesn't seem to be able to translate that into club form. I think there is a very very good player and a very good striker in there, but it just
he's selfless. He's a selfless player. I
yeah.
don't see him play for Brazil, but when he plays for Spurs, he runs around a lot.
The one thing I would
he
say,
doesn't hang around for tappings.
yeah, the one thing I would say with Brazil is that he is, he's flanked by some unbelievable players of Brazil. So, one side of him he's got Rodrigo, the other side he's got Vini Jr. Yes, it's Ten Hag. Great stuff. Someone said, "Oh my God, it's Ten Hag." See, I said that earlier, didn't I? Someone said Arnie Slot, and then I said no, more Ten Hag because of the beard.
Mm-hmm.
Ten Hag signs for Chelsea. There you go. You heard it here first.
It might happen.
Do you know what? I mean, I think he's been like we touched on it earlier. I think he's been a little bit harshly treated at United. They've had as many injuries this season as any other club. In fact, I think they top the injury table, if you like. They only got Martinez back 2.5 games ago, and he's arguably their most elite centre back. Varane played against City yesterday. He's off. He's going this summer as well. So yeah, I think Ten Hag's been a bit harshly treated. It's 2 cup finals and 2 trophies in 2 years. All right, yeah, they finished 8th and they're out of the Champions League, but What more do you want? He still put 2 trophies in there, and it's been a very difficult year to be able to break into that top four. They haven't really had a 20 goal a season striker. Hoyland's a good player, but he's young, he's raw. Rashford, yet again, has had another one of them seasons where he's just been like completely off of it. Although he did show up in the game yesterday. I thought he was very, very good against. I managed to watch the second half. I thought he was very, very good against City yesterday, Rashford. He's brought in young players. He's integrated young players into the team in Mainu and Garnacho. What more would you want? I think this is just the thing with when new owners take over a club, and we saw this when Clearlake came in at Chelsea and sacked Tuchel. And new ownership just wants their man, whether that's the right decision or not. They want their man. And I think that's wrong. It's poor. Yeah, but I tell you what, I saw a comment actually pop up in the chat a little while ago, and they wanted our thoughts on Crystal Palace. And I tell you what, you look at the form over their last 6-7 games, and particularly since Glasner came in as manager. If they can keep Eze and Elise, and I know yet again they're players that have been linked through both our clubs actually. Palace could do top 10 easily next year.
I don't think they will. One of them will go this summer.
Struggle.
The other one will go the summer after.
Yeah, if not both. But then, the other side to that is that if you're Palace and you can't go mad on transfers, if you can bring 120 million in on 2 players, and that 120 million, rebuilds a team,
or even whoever you sell them to, you get a player off them on loan as well as 50 or 60 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just had a question in the chat about United actually, and Ten Hag, funny enough. Did you see any of the clips from the interviews with Shearer and Lineker interviewing Ten Hag after the game?
No.
It's well worth checking out. Right, so they've got him pitch side, and rather than talk about how fantastic United were, they decided to effectively have a dig at him for finishing 8th. And saying it's not good enough. And Shearer's like, well, where have you been all season? Because that performance was unbelievable today. So where have you been all season, and finishing 8th is not good enough? And then Lineker turns around and says, well, do you know what's happening? Are you being sacked or not? Guys like standing there with an FA Cup winning medal, and you're asking him questions like that. It's like, what is going on? So yeah, there's been a bit of uproar about that behaviour. So you get a chance after the pod, you have a look at the clips and that, and see what you think. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for the question, Kai. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think that Ten Hag was poorly treated. I think he's been pretty much poorly treated since Ineos and Radcliffe took over, personally. And do you know what? And I'll give credit to Ten Hag, because in that interview he said, "I don't know what happened." He said, "And if I'm not here, I'll go somewhere else and win trophies." So
there's your answer.
There's your answer, and I think he probably will. I think he's a good manager. He's done well with Ajax. Look how bad Ajax have been since he's left. They've gone through another manager, and they've had to have reappointed a new manager in the last couple of weeks. So yeah. I'll tell you what though, because this could affect both of us potentially next season. Where do you think Liverpool stand going into this next season?
I think they're gettable. From the Spurs and Chelsea, which I don't know what happens with Chelsea, but from a Spurs perspective, I think they're gettable for next season. I think they're a season behind with changing manager.
I wouldn't be surprised if Salah goes, because I think that the temptation to take that Saudi money for Salah, and obviously for Salah himself, financially to cement your future forever. I think there would be a temptation there. I think Arne Slot comes in as the Jurgen Klopp fall guy. I think Arne Slot's not the man that takes Liverpool back. I think Arne Slot's the man that takes Liverpool to the next man. I think that fails. I think he's probably a very good manager. I've not seen much of Feyenoord, and I know the Feyenoord fans were very upset to lose him. You know, at the end of the season when he did his thing on the pitch and spoke to the fans, etc., they all started singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" to him, and the fans all crying in the stands, etc. Yeah, so I think Liverpool. I if I was going to have a bit of a bet, I don't think they make top four next year.
Well, I think you might be right.
Yeah, which leaves the door open, you know, if for the likes of Newcastle, potentially Villa again, yourselves. And if we get it right with the
United,
managerial
Chelsea.
appointment, then you know, yeah, United, Chelsea, depends who comes in there. Um, I know that we were looking at Kieran McKenna, and he's done a great job with Ipswich, back-to-back promotions, well over 90 points in each season, which is an incredible feat. Not a massive budget. You know, he's brought in a few loan players. They've had Amari Hutchison off of us this season. He's gone up in Championship and absolutely tore it up. Been brilliant. Yet again, he has actually got, obviously he worked at United as a coach, so he has a familiarity with United, which is, I think he's held off on talks with us to potentially wait and see if that United job becomes available. Yeah.
I think we should save all that for another pod once the
Well,
manager
we'll have to do it
merry-go-round
where
starts to happen.
we'll have to do it. We get Kieran and Andy on, and it hopefully make like, and we can try and time it and link it up so you're here as well, and so that way the pair of us can absolutely badger these two United fans into submission about what's going on at their club. But yeah, crazy. But yeah, anything else you want to add, mate, on Spurs?
No, that's all good. I think
I
we
think
wrap it up there, and
yeah, and then we can come back already. You know, pre-season friendly. I mean, you guys ridiculous jetted off the States and already played a pre-season friendly. Or end
well,
of season
post-season
friendly.
game
Yeah,
in
end of season, yeah,
Australia, yeah,
and lost
on penalties. I mean, it
on
makes no
penalties.
difference, does
No,
it? Like, you know.
pointless game, absolutely pointless
And
game.
then Newcastle played the A-League All-Stars and they lost 8-0.
Yeah, I think that I didn't see the team. I don't know who went on it, but I'd imagine most of the first team would probably all be sat on a beach somewhere.
I
But yeah,
think they took most of the squad. It was a mixture of, but yeah, 8-0 was still a bit of an embarrassment to an A-League All-Star team. It's not even a team who play together every week. It's all the players picked from the different A-League teams,
yeah, yeah,
including Ben
crazy.
Old from the Phoenix, who's a very good player. He scored the first goal.
Yeah. Is that an ex-Spurs player?
No, he plays for Wellington Phoenix.
Oh, okay,
Ben
all
Old
right. So
is a
yeah, obviously,
winger for the Phoenix. Yeah,
okay,
he's a good
yeah.
player.
So it's
Yeah,
your
for
your
that level
local
for
your
for
local
A-League.
local team. Do you know what? I've not managed to watch any A League football. I might have to start paying a bit of interest to it and see, um, especially when I'm on lates and stuff like that, because obviously the games will be on at times when like I'm like just sort of like waking up in the mornings, etc. So yeah, I might have to start watching a few of them. Check out Wellington and see what they're like.
Yeah, they came second this year, and then the top 4 or 6 teams, yeah, top 4 teams go into a playoff, and they lost the two-leg semi-final
Yeah.
to Melbourne Victory. So Melbourne Victory are playing
Is there
next
like
week, I
a
think.
is there like a Champions League for that region where you play against like teams from, say, like, you know, the Asia leagues and like Japan, China,
No,
etc.
not really. It's just at the moment it's just a Phoenix part of the A League, and then Auckland have got a team coming in for next season.
Okay,
So the Auckland and Wellington both playing. I think 2 New Zealand teams playing in the
that's good.
Australian League.
Season ticket? You gonna go for it? You gonna go and watch them?
You don't need to. The games are the stadiums never full, so you just
Really?
turn up on the
You can
day if
just
you
go
want.
and watch.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. You better get a few games. We'll have to get you maybe we get like an in stadium, get you on your
Yeah.
phone and we're doing like an in stadium interview within the stadium and
Phoenix,
that, just to see what it's all like. Definitely have to give that a smash. Yeah,
cool.
maybe get you do a few interviews, on the spot interviews with some people, and we get it up on the socials. That'd be good. All right, well, there we go. That's episode 17, mate. Yeah, I get to go back to sleep for a couple of hours now before I go to the gym. Get me get me fitness going. You know, I've had
Looking good.
I put a couple of pounds on because I obviously had the foot injury. So obviously I went back playing football. I was clean for on goal, went to hit my shot. The guy's accidental. He's come across to block it, and I've bang into his stud. So I had double fracture on the right foot, fourth and fifth metatarsal, ligament damage. The missus was not happy because we got holiday in 3 months. So I've promised not to play football now until after the holiday. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed coming back and playing. It was actually quite nice. But yeah, it is what it is. But that meant that I couldn't go to the gym, and I predominantly do cardio when I'm in the gym, so I had to give that a break. But I've been back this week, so I've done Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm in there again today, Sunday. So yeah, I'm being consistent. Even if I just get in there and do a bit of swimming, I'm trying to be a bit consistent and just keep it going. So I've got 3 months now up until August, until the holiday, and the aim is to look pretty trim when I hit the beach in Turkey. But my hotel is excellent. It's got an excellent gym and spa, and I'm going to be using that while I'm out there as well. So, and I'm not going to be going
You
crazy.
signed off, or are we just having a
No, we're still going. This is just me rambling now. Me completely rambling to the audience on the podcast about my fat belly.
Sign it off, get us off live, and then we'll have a chat.
Right, there we go. Right, thank you very much to everyone that's joined in on TikTok. Apologies if I've missed anything over there. Simon Cotton, I can see you there, mate. He's a big Southampton fan. I've been trying to get him on the pod. He's also a steward at the St Mary's, but we will get him on eventually. Good luck today in the game. I think Leeds might have a little bit too much for you, but good luck anyway. And if Southampton get back to the Premier League, brilliant. So, yes, that's the end of this episode. We're going to get pulled back, hopefully more regularly, and then and talk all things Spurs and Chelsea with you. And obviously we've got the Euros coming up as well. So brilliant. We'll be looking forward to that. Hopefully. We'll see. Right, YouTube, I am signing you off if I can find the button, which I can't.